Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Mike Shepard, your board chairman, and I'd like to welcome you to this quarterly meeting. Thank you for making the effort to be here. And I usually stop right there, but I just want to say a few words as we head into Thanksgiving week. Our youngest daughter got married the weekend before last, and many of you know Katie. And the words, united in marriage, have really struck with me. Finding unity in times when the world might be trying to divide all of us is difficult. And I'm thankful for the world that you and your parents created for the Shepard family. You remember Teddy, if you're a history buff, for sure you will. Remember Teddy Roosevelt's famous Get in the Arena speech? Get in the arena. Fail while doing greatly. Spending oneself in a worthy cause. I stand here in front of you knowing that your parents and you got into the arena, maybe several arenas. You were willing to try harder, willing to fail for future success, and I'm thankful for all of you. Then what his brother said on December 8th, maybe even more importantly than a day that will live in infamy, was we're going to win the war and we are going to win the peace that follows. He was, of course, referring to what became known as the Cold War. Again, you got into the arena. You made this a better world. I believe these days are also the good old days for future generations, and I am thankful for each of you. So you should know, my Katie's generation looks at you, to your steadfast love, like the light we long for when waiting for a sunrise. May your love remain that light for future generations, a reflection of God's own love, radiant in its unity and grace. Happy Thanksgiving.
Good afternoon. My name is Todd Stifler. I'm the Chief Financial Officer, and I will be presenting two things today. First, we'll talk about the first three quarters of 2025 financial results, and then we'll talk about the 2026 budget. Okay, so what we're looking at right now is the balance sheet for September 30th. This is the asset side. And we'll look at, oh, by the way, this is page 3 of your handout. So currently, our current assets sit at $20,827,000 compared to last year's budget, or last year's results of $23,285,000. So the decrease of that $2.5 million is primarily due to the transfer of funds from the depository account within the unrestricted use of assets to the 2021A principal and interest accounts within the restricted use assets. But then you'll also see the accounts receivable increase. In September, we had two interest fee receivables. Both of these were paid in November once their house sold and they moved in, so we got that collected. And then also to offset that was the prepaid expenses, which we had insurance renewals. So that is set in prepaid is being amortized over the 12 months. Going down to restricted assets, you can see it increased from 17 to 24. That $6.9 million is primarily funded by the transfer of the Bank United MLR account that we set up, and it was funded through excess entrance fees. And then also it was increased from the transfer from the depository to the principal and interest accounts that we just previously discussed. And then last on the asset side, I would like to talk about the project costs down here at Oak Ridge. And this is really phase 3, so Oak Ridge includes the parking garage here that's under construction now. I think they're putting the rock pilings in now to go vertical. But that went from $6.7 million up to $32 million. And then again, like I said, this was all about the memory care and assisted living over at Oak Ridge and the parking garage here at the Sawgrass campus. Next slide. Now we're looking at the balance sheet, both on your liabilities and net assets. The arrows got down, but what I want to talk about is the current, the accounts payable and the other current liabilities. It went from 3.2 to 7.4. That increase was due to the pay applications for both the memory care and ALF buildings, and then also the general pay application for the parking garage. That's the main increase there from 2024 to 2025. The next one I want to talk about is just the refunds due. These are the interest refunds due for $196,000 increase. We began the year with 2 refunds. We actually increased through 2025 of 4 more, but then we also paid the 4, so we're still outstanding for 2, roughly just under $650,000. The accrued interest of the $793, that represents the 2021 A Series bond interest due. We pay this semi-annually, so we pay one on June 15th, and the other one is due December 15th. And also December 15th, we have a principal payment of $1.7 million due as well. Going down to the 2024 series bonds, you can see that went from $5 million up to $25.7. Again, that is increased for the draw request on the memory care and ALF building. This is our drawdowns for the 2024 series bonds. And that that loan is a $66 million loan through Hancock Whitney and Bank United as a participant. And then lastly, we can see the refund entrance fees. So we can see that decreased by roughly $980,000. We have currently about 60 refundable contracts still outstanding. So the one thing we want to point out also is the deferred revenue. You either have a traditional A contract or you have a refundable. Most majority of our residents are opting for the traditional A, just the declining balance, versus a refundable. So that's going to help us in the future just get our cash flow up to where we need it to be. Next. We're going to talk about our income statement now. As you can see, just for the operating year-to-date budget, we're about $280,000 favorable. The only issue that we have is our residential revenue. We're behind about $433,000, and that's related to our occupancy here at Sawgrass. What happened is Tess and her group has done a phenomenal job of selling the units. We just got to pick up the pace of getting the units renovated and get the future resident in their unit. So that's the downfall of that. However, as you can see with the revenue between health services from 2025 and year-to-date versus budget, we're actually up $717,000, and that's 11% above budget, and that's that is contributed to the home health revenue is up $383,000 or 34%, and the additional therapy is also ahead of budget. Our healthcare and ALF census levels are right in line where we thought they would be, slightly ahead. And then home health has just blown it out of the water. They've exceeded their budget as well. Just going down to the expenses now. We're about $1.2 million over. And I hate to be like a broken record. It's the same thing that over from the beginning of the year. We've had issues with our nursing FTEs. We're utilizing contract labor, and it's basically still a nationwide shortage. And then also with the additional revenue in home health, she's had to offset that with the need of higher demand for home health services. We had to use contract labor. And then the other issue, as you see, is our dining services. We're about, oh, well, no, it's just like the home health, or excuse me, our high cost of foods and our increasing dining service wages are in demand for services over at Oak Ridge. The good thing is, a lot of the categories here, you look at general G&A, human resources, activities, all of the savings that they have to offset the two overages. And then the last item we'll talk about is operating income. As you can see, we're about $800,000 off of budget, but it's being picked up. Go to the next slide. As you can see, we do not budget for capital gains, capital losses, but if you look at that, we were about $800,000 unfavorable to budget, to actually now we're $190,000 favorable to budget. So when you look at our deficit, net asset change to net assets is 2.7. So as you can see, it's a reduction of 2.7 over last year's beginning balance. The next page is the cash flow, year-to-date cash flow. Cash provided by operating activities is $14.1 million. Oh, by the way, this is on page 6. The main drivers for this is the interest fee received. The net is about $9 million. But then also, if you look at the increase in AP and accruals and our construction payable of that, will get you up to that $14 million. So, like I said, we've increased our accounts payable, but we are current. So what happens is the GC provides us for a draw request for September, but it's not paid until October because we are waiting for the funds coming from the bank loan to pay that. Next slide. Continuation of the cash flow. On this one, you can see cash used by investing activities of the $39 million. And the majority of that is our purchase of property and equipment. It's basically our routine CapEx expenses here, as well as our Oak Ridge, and well, actually should say Phase 3 construction project. And then the financing cash provided by financing activities of $21 million. As you can see, a majority of it right there is for our drawdown loan from Hancock Whitney Bank and Bank United funding of loans. So that gives us our ending cash balance of $8 million for. And then next page. The only other issue I want to talk about is the cash flow statement, or excuse me, the cash statement. So when you look through here, you're looking at the unrestricted cash. It went from 21 million down to 17 million. And as I talked about in the previous presentation, a lot of it is majority down here is where we have to fund our interest and principal payment. And then the other item here is our MLR, this is the Bank United account that we had set up, and we funded that with our excess interest fees. So that's the main driver of what decreased here and increased in our restricted cash. And that's your summary of the Q3 financial results. Do you have any questions, or are you ready to talk about the 2026 budget? Okay, seeing none? Yes.
You hear me okay? Todd, the problem of having to use outside contract help over in the health center, etc., if you paid those people more, maybe not as much as the deficit, would you be able to retain or get additional full-time staff?
Well, actually, it's not the retention that's getting us. It's what it is getting additional nurses. They're going more towards the hospital, whether it's that action they want versus coming upon a Vidra. I mean, so I think we're fine, and I mean, Elizabeth and Kendall can talk about it, but we're priced right for salaries. It's just not the availability of getting staff in here.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay, seeing no other questions, let's start with the fun part, 2026 budget. So, as you can see, the driver for preparing and approving the 26 operating budget is the Office of Insurance Regulation. The OIR requires a 60-day advance notice for the monthly service fee increase, which is by November 1st. And I believe you were noticed somewhere about the end of October, like the 24th, 25th, at that Friday. So we had it like a week in advance prior to our obligated notice. As you're aware, the Florida statute is 37, title for the insurance for continuing care contracts. This is a Chapter 651 CCRC guidance. One thing that we always want to point out, the OIR requires us to go through an audit. Since we are CARB certified, we only have to go through an audit every 5 years. And if you recall, we had like a 9-year audit due to the COVID and the staff of OIR, which we just completed back and went through 2022. So our next audit will not be required until the year 2027. So, going to the next slide, under Chapter 651.085, the provider is required, we'll read it through here, is that the provider is required to provide reasons for any multi-service fee increase that exceeds the most recent published consumer index for their region. One thing that we want to point out here is that nothing in this subsection shall be construed as placing a cap or limitation on the amount of the increase in the monthly service fee or maintenance fee, establish a presumption of the appropriateness of the consumer price index. So what all is saying is that, yes, the consumer price index for all items was like a 2.7, which I think today, or actually it was released yesterday, was a 3.0. It's a guideline. Anything above and beyond that, we would have to explain, which I will further do in the presentation. But it doesn't limit us to go over the CPI. Next question. And due to the fact that we had the government shutdown, at the time, I was only able to pull the August 24 to August 25 for the all items consumer price index. Like I said, it was 2.7. Last year was a 2.1, and then when it just came out yesterday, it was a 3.0 from September 24 to September 2025. And one thing is with all items, it includes, the food, clothing, shelter. It gives us a lot more items that we as Vickers Landing really don't track, because we see ourselves as more of a service industry and medical provider. So basically, we do not track with the CPI because of expenses so heavily weighted on the personnel, medical, and service model. Next slide. Here's an example of kind of like what we look at. Food away from home is 4.1%. Then granted, primary residence was 2.7. Fuels utilities was a 6.6. Medical services 3.7. So all services, when we look at this, we focus more on the all services, which is a 3.6, versus just the all items for our budget process. So the next slide. So what I wanted to kind of do is give you a generalization of what our steps are and what we've done to come up with what we proposed, what was revised, what was edited, what was kind of influenced from all aspects, from department heads, finance committee, the board, all through our financial review of the budget. So we're kind of going to go through just kind of like the process of what I took to get through this step. And it was a long process. We started basically first part of July and finished it in October. So when we first met, we met with all department heads and tasked them to kind of project what their end of year is going to look like for 2025 and see where we're at with our trends, kind of looking at that. And then I was sat down with each department head and kind of went through, okay, here's what your operating expenses are, what your new initiatives for 2026 are going to be, and kind of like what your FTEs look like. What's it going to need to take you to do your jobs, meet our expectations of our residents, and service our members. Then we sat down and said, okay, another thing driving this is the occupancy. Okay, so you met with marketing and health services, kind of see where we were trending with our occupancy levels and all levels of care, and kind of came up with kind of what we thought we were going to meet, where we exceeded, or if we're going to, drop back a little bit, what was the drivers on this? So we sat down and came up with kind of our game plan. Next slide. So then it kind of goes back, when the managers came back and said, okay, they presented me with what all their wants and needs were going to be, their new initiatives, kind of consolidated that up and said, okay, what's it going to run our monthly service fee? So we went through that and basically kind of had to go back to them and said, okay, it's nice to have a wish list for you guys, however, we can't afford this. We're going to have to go back, we're going to cut some items out of this to make sure that we can quantify the monthly service fee increase that we're going to propose for 2026. So we sent them back down to go back and revisit their budgets and their new initiatives. Then what happens, they would resubmit. We would kind of come back and consolidate those up to see what the monthly service fees were going to be. Then I was sitting down with senior management. We kind of go through that, see what we can propose to the finance committee for our meetings, and get their feedback. So when we met with them, after we sat down with the managers, we went to the finance committee meeting, presented it, and they came back and said, okay, let's refine this a little bit more. So we had to go back to the department heads, work through this, and kind of come up with what we really think we could quantify to the membership. Next slide. So then, when we came back and said, okay, we feel comfortable, we're going to be with the finance committee meeting, committee meeting members, and go through a presentation, very thorough, of where we tend to be for 2025, or where we're going to be for 2026, and went through a detailed budget and discussion. And then finally, the finance committee members felt that they could support and recommend the increase to the board. And then after that, I met with the resident council chair, Nancy Mock, and the finance committee chair, Harry Skelton. We went through a presentation and kind of was really an integral part of understanding where they thought they would be, where we were, and we all kind of worked back and had a better understanding of what your expectations were from what we were presenting. And, it was a good conversation. And then Harry was basically, as well as Nancy, attended our board meeting where we voted to present and approve the monthly service fee increases to the boards. And the boards passed that unanimously. And then one thing also we have to do is we have to send out a existing resident 6 days in advance for the effective date. And what we did that, and then today is the board approved budget presented to the residents in a quarterly meeting, which I am doing now. So one other thing we looked at for the influences, let me catch up, is the economic conditions, the cost of living changes, the real estate market, and labor cost market. We try to stay competitive, so we have our the staff retention. And we feel like, when we sat down with all the department heads, we felt like we were comfortable with the salary rates and benefits that we do offer. So we felt good there. The real estate market, as you know, has softened. It's a buyer's market right now. So our entrance fee increases that we do for our move-ins ties kind of closely with the real estate market. So what we've done, we've increased a weighted average for our interest fees roughly about 5%. So any new members coming in are paying about 5% increase over our interest fees from 2025. The other item we look at is our short-term and long-term financial stability. So we just don't look at this year over year and just see what we're at for monthly service fee increase. What we look at is we use a 5-year model. And most of you, or some of you know about our 1 Point, which is our financial advisor. We go through extensive reviews with her or with their company, and we put all of our budget numbers, any assumptions that we made, goes into this model, and it kicks out to where we're going to be for our operating ratios. And we all fall in line to make sure that we meet our covenants, first of all, but also we look at ourselves with CARF, our CARF certification. We try to get to, at least the 25 to 50th percentile. Some things we do hit 75%. But we always want to make sure that we are looking at the future, just not the next year. The next item we really want to take a look at is our occupancy for independent living and our high levels of care. This year is a little bit different. It's just not with our Sawgrass campus, but we have to look at Oak Ridge as well. So one thing we were looking at is how quickly can we get occupancy increase over at Oak Ridge. But also we've got to look at, opening the 2 facilities over there. What's our startup cost? And what's the labor that's going to be needed to get the training, to get the certifications in there so we can open up the memory care? So a lot of it this year, there's a lot of expense that we've incurred in 2026 that we won't really have to incur the following year because it's just that startup cost. So you're going to see the increases in the operations for Oak Ridge is a little bit higher than what normally would be. And then insurance, we've had a good year. We haven't, with the storms or anything like that, we haven't had to deal with the increases in insurance for the hurricanes. However, as many as you know, or have been in the insurance industry, a lot of providers and carriers have left the state of Florida because they don't want to carry the property insurance. So it's a competitive market, but very limited on what you can get, what you get offered. So it's always a tight market that we look at, and insurance is one of the costs, but it's not a major cost for this year. Ancillary revenues, it's just how can we improve, making sure that we offer services to the membership that they might not need or have it accessible to do. So it's not a big revenue generator, but it's a portion of our revenues. Next slide. And like I said, we have to follow our bond covenants. That's one thing we look at. Our bond covenant for debt service coverage ratio is a 1.2, and right now we're carrying it at 2.8, and our budget for 2026 is at 2.31. The reason why it did drop down is because we're going to start carrying debt for the 2024 series bonds that are covered under the project currently. But in 2026, it will be a portion of it will be absorbed in operations. So we're going to reflect that. And days cash on hand, we're sitting right now about just under 300 at 291, and our bond covenant is 150. So we're meeting all of our bond covenants, which is definitely a good thing. And we'll try to increase that over the next few years after we get stabilized in our Phase 3 of Oak Ridge. Reserve requirements, we are regulated by the OIR, and we have to set aside cash funds for debt service, operating fund, and our renewal and replacement funds. It's not one of the things that we have to do, or we're required to do, but it's also for the safety of our residents. So that we want to have funds that know that if something happens, we've got the funds set aside that we can make the repairs or operating out of that. So it is to protect our members' interest. Bond rating, it's maintaining and improving on our double B plus rating. As you know, we did drop from investment grade. We are trying to work back up into investment grade. But until we have stabilization, we'll probably be in that rating, probably double B plus stable for the next year and a half, until we get stabilized over at Oak Ridge. Actuarial evaluation. One thing that, actually the finance committee for your members will be meeting with our actuary, I think it's December 2nd. He's doing a presentation. But one thing that we look at, we look at the actuary twice a year. The first time is we go through the budget, and we give him all of our assumptions, we give him our census, and he plugs it in his actuarial system, and we get a letter stating how we are compared to what we've done in the past, 8 years. So we look at it at that time, and then we also look at it year end. So we want to make sure that everything that we're doing falls in line and we're in good standing, just not from a car standpoint, but as an actuarial perspective. And then lastly is our staff recruitment and retention. I mean, as you're going to see, is our staffing costs are roughly about 56% of our total operating costs. So what it is we want to make sure we offer competitive wage and benefits for the retention of the staff. If it's not, it's going to cost us more money to come back and train the staff that we're going to hire. So it's best yet to go ahead and pay the competitive wage to keep them here versus looking for another job. And then our budget objectives, I mean, it's all about the quality and level of service, and we always want to continue to improve. I mean, we're here to serve you, so we want to make sure that we're meeting our expectations. Again, as we just talked about with our competitive wages for retention of our employees, it's definitely, it's more feasible for us to pay the higher rate or a better rate than it is to replace and hire and go through the whole training. And then we want to continue to focus on the funding of operating expenses and debt service from our monthly service fee. We really don't want to rely on our entrance fees to pay for our debt service. But there's times where, just like we're taking on debt, it's going to be required to use those entrance fees. But we want to get into a habit or in a better financial position so we don't have to utilize entrance fees to pay debt service. And then to continue move toward CARF certification. This basically CARF is just making sure that you're well managed and we want to meet the CARF ratios. Like I said, most of the time we are at 25 to 50th percentile. Others, sometimes we do hit the 75th percentile. But we want to be that elite CCRC, and that's our ultimate goal. And then lastly, like the actuarial funded status, we are going towards the 105 to 110. I know my predecessor would definitely make this a big point of emphasis for him. And it's going to be the same way with me. However, due to the fact that we took on some more debt and did not meet our revenues for our expenses, so we took a little dip, and you'll see that here in the near future. But we're still over the 100% percentage. And like I said, the increase are determined into consideration occupancy projections, expenses, and long-term financial stability. And as I previously said, we're just not looking at 2026. We're looking out to 2030. And then the expense decisions that we're considered is, of course, service to our residents, and then the long-term impact on financial viability of the organization. And as we talked about, 56% of the whole budget, operating budget, is all in salary and benefits. So it's a big impact that is the burden on here. And the other issue, the other item of category really is our insurance, fees, and taxes. So when you look at that, out of that 100%, 71% is in two categories. And one, we would definitely want to keep competitive, but in the insurance and tax, there's not a whole lot that we can control, because it is what our competitors are out there and what we are able to purchase for insurance, whether it's property, liability, D&O. It's we go out and market to get the best price, but we have actually a third party that also helps us to make sure that we're getting our bang for the buck. So just to kind of summarize, this is kind of like the processes that I've taken and the department heads. The finance team worked closely with all the department heads to discuss the operating budgets and capital budgets to compile the information submitted. We worked through the process with senior management and the finance committee to arrive at the appropriate monthly service fee increase. The past 5 years, it's been a bit challenging because every year you look around, we were doing a expansion project, whether it was phase 1, phase 2, phase 2A, phase 3 in Oak Ridge. So therefore, we don't have that historical data as we do as the Sawgrass campus. As mentioned, we met several times with the trustee finance committee, and as well as the member council representative, and walked through both groups with them about the proposed budget. We rationalized for the monthly service fee, and then 2026 operating capital budgets were presented in detail to the trustee finance committee in October, and then we met with the committee and voted to recommend the boards to approve the monthly service fee increase as well as the operating and capital budgets. And then the last meeting we had, the both governing boards unanimously approved the 2026 increase. At that time also, like I said before, the resident representative Harry and the member chair Nancy Mock was at those meetings. So going back to kind of like the expense side now, I'm kind of going to give you a generalization and then give you a snapshot of what the increase of expenses were and offset by the additional revenues that were increased. So, as I mentioned before, we have a 56% of the budget was for employee wages and benefits. One thing you'll see, we added 35 FTEs this year. And a lot of that, now I want to also let you mention that it's not 35 from January 1st. They were phased in as the needed for the budgeted occupancy levels. So these were phased in. So that we didn't get the full impact of the 35 individuals this year. You will absorb that in 2027. But the majority of those were for the operations of the memory care in ALF. As like I mentioned before, we have a lot of startup costs in memory care that we're going to have to absorb in operation, as well as the training for the certification of the nurses and CNAs. Also, we used a pool of roughly 3.25% increase for all employees. It's an average pool, so it's basically 3.25. Some might get more, some might get less, but an average of 3.25. And our health insurance, 403B matches, payroll taxes, all increase proportionately with those increases. The next item that was a big driver for us was information technology, as well as real estate taxes. But what the information technology is, with all the new systems and operations over at Oak Ridge, and being compliant with our security, we've hired a K4 Connect, which is an elite vendor that we're utilizing to do dashboards. What we're trying to do is get the data out sooner to the department managers, the management, to make decisions. We've got all this data, and we want to extract it out and how to get it in a dashboard to be more useful in a timely manner. That also includes smart home technology and, like I said, the compliance requirements. So all of that, and then Oak Ridge, if you look at Oak Ridge, we added the 5 cottages that came in on, we didn't get the CO until 2025, so it didn't really hit the real estate tax department until 2025. So that was going to be the increase in taxes. And then also, as I mentioned, in 2024 series bonds, we are funded by the projects currently, but in 2026 that will be absorbed by operations as well. So that impact was about $741,000. And then the last item, it was kind of a catch-all. We got $1.2 million. It sounds like a big number, but when you look at through all of the departments, whether it's dining, housekeeping, G&A, human resources, all of that, other than the revenue, or excuse me, the wages and benefits, all that rolled up into that number, which accounted for 3.4%. Now, when you add all this up, you're looking at, oh my gosh, that's like 15%. How am I going to get over this? So what happens is we have additional revenue coming in that we're going to take as, we've increased the percentage of in IL. Our health center, AL, and home health has increased. But also opening the memory care and ALF will also get us into the revenue that we needed. So this slide we're looking at is just kind of like from the revenue standpoint from occupancy. If you look at 2024, we're at 96. We're running right now about 95% year to date in 2025, but we're budgeting for 97% in independent living. And we're kind of in line with what was actual from 2024. We're a little bit less than in 2025, but we've had a little spike in the last 2 months. So I don't know if we're going to be carrying that clear throughout, so we'll wait and see. But I felt comfortable with the 85%. Now, assisted living, you're going to think, why is a big drop off? Well, when you look at that, we're phasing in the occupancy at the memory care, which we're on schedule to open up in February. So we start looking at occupancy like in the March into April. And then when we're looking at our AL, we won't have the CO until late April or first part of May. So we're looking at late May or first of June to occupy those. But so when you look at it, it drops to 72%. But when you look at it as a whole as of December 31st, we'll have 16 units, or 89% of the memory care occupied, and we'll be right at 58, I think, at the time of December 31st with the AL. And one thing to focus on, the AL will be new. It won't be anyone. We're still going to keep roughly that 89% at the Sawgrass campus. We're not transferring anybody over, or if we do, we're backfilling that percentage. The next slide is kind of like we talked about an independent. We're looking at for a 97%. We are at 146 units occupied as of September. We had to move in over at Oak Ridge, so Oak Ridge is 100% occupied. At Sawgrass, we're looking right now at 210, I think, occupied. But we have 16 under renovation. 15 of those are set up for 10% deposits. We're just waiting for the renovations to get completed and to expedite the renovation process. We brought a new GC in back in the first part of 2025. And since then, we brought in two additional GCs to help us get the units available quicker. And in 2026, we're looking at probably adding another one GC to make sure that we get them moved in a more timely fashion. Because once they get to move in, it helps with the entrance fee, receivable, and monthly service fees. All that picks up, so we'll have more cash to help out with our days cash on hand. And currently, right now, as I said, we have like roughly 10% deposit. When I look at that, and if you look at adding the 90% to that, that's about $7 million. And on average, we're about 110 costs per day. So when you look at that, that will add 64 days, give or take, to days cash on hand, which we're set at 291 now. So we'll be well close to that, having a full year of unrestricted cash. So here's our snapshot, like we talked about. So when you look at it, we were looking at 3.3 or 10% impact for just the payroll and benefits. Like I told you, the information technology and real estate are 741 or 2.2, and all others. So we're looking at 15.6% increase at $5.2 million. However, additional revenue that we're going to generate is 11.6 or 3.9 million. So that gives you to your 4% monthly service fee increase. Now, when I did an analysis, we looked through some of our local competitors, and Ziegler, they put out a CCRC analysis. When we look at we're a traditional A community, and most of them are like room from 4, but on average for this Ziegler, it was like a 4.2. So we're right in line with our competitors and where we thought we'd be throughout the United States. So, I mean, to quantify it, that's where we're at 4%. Now, this increase, of course, comes with risk. Everything comes with risk. So when you look at this, number one is to get Oak Ridge, AL, and memory care filled up as soon as possible. So that's the importance. We need our projections, our budget projections, while maintaining, like I said, the occupancy here at Sawgrass. Next question, or next item that we always look at is labor market. I mean, it's got its challenges, but we feel like we're competitively priced for salaries. And, you know, HR is always looking for better benefits to offer our employees. And then the last one is, again, the housing market. I mean, because our interest fees are based off of kind of like the market rate right now. So, you know, it is something, like I said, it's a buyer's market right now. What was taking, you know, less than 30 days to sell, you know, a year and a half ago, it's taking anywhere from, you know, 90, 120 days to sell. So, I mean, like I said, marketing has done a great job of getting the units sold as they come online. I mean, Tess and our group are pretty much has somebody to step in and to sign an interest fee agreement. Our wait list is still strong. Our wait list is still 409 as of September. That's just unbelievable that we've got that many people waiting to get in with us. The next slide here is just kind of like on average what we've done since 2021 through 2025 of last year. The average is a 4.19 or 18 monthly service fee increase. And we just look at the last 5 years, we're looking at 4.28. And what we're proposing and what we've adopted and accepted and approved was a 4.0 this year. So it's right, you know, kind of like where we're trending to be. Our key objectives on this slide, we always want to be under or below the 100% basic operating ratio. We've been running, we're at a 97.55. And if you look where we're looking at for 2025 right now, just through the 9 months, we're at a 98.7. So it's definitely, it was projected, we can definitely meet that. Our break even or better change in unrestricted net assets, we're projected at 2.2 million, which is good. As the only downfall that we've got is our capital or operating expenses and debt service funded by operating revenues. That's where we knew that we were going to take a step back because of the debt that we were incurring. So we've got roughly about a $3 million deficit. However, we are well ahead of that in our our turnover entrance fees. So we will cover that plus our capital expenditures. And then, as I mentioned before, we do meet our bond covenants. Our debt service coverage ratio is a 2.31 to a covenant of 1.2. And our projected days cash on hand will be about 354 to a covenant of 150, which the 354, we're just, like I said, we're just under 1 year of unrestricted cash. And from our actuary, this is what we were talking about previously mentioned. We look at this twice a year. One, we look at during the budget process to make sure where we're going to be in our funded status, and where we look at where we result in the end of the year. So when you look at it, we were looking at a 1.2, and we dropped down to 100.6. And as I mentioned before, it's basically we're slightly decreased due to our operating expenses. We're increasing more quickly than our revenues. Next slide. And this is kind of like a snapshot of our P&L, projected P&L. So our operating income or loss, we're coming in at like just 4.8. We're a little bit down from last year, but again, it's all about debt service coverage ratio, or debt service. Go to the next slide, please. Where we got our debt here is we notice that we're taking. Oops, sorry, wrong slide. But here we go. Go back. Sorry. So, but it's still, the thing is, look at our bottom line. We're still at 2.1 or 2.2 million. Like I talked about, we met our objective versus a 3.2 from last year. And now go to the next slide when I talk about the debt service coverage rate or debt service where we're here. We're at 7.2, like I talked about. So we just didn't have enough for our operating to cover our debt service and our operating operating expenses. But like I said, we are well covered with our turnover interest fees to cover that. And if you take the next slide, our capital expenditures of roughly about $6 million. I mean, the big push here is our apartment renovation. We usually go through a 10-year renovation period. And I think Ember and his group have done a phenomenal job. We are, I think, about 65 to 70% complete on that. So this will, you would think most of this will decrease from next year. However, it might increase due to the fact that now with Oak Ridge coming online and the turnover entrance fees, it just depends on what the residents will do to get their units ready to occupy the unit. Other than that, I believe that's the end of my presentation for the 2026 budget. So basically at this time, questions or move on? Do we have any questions? Yes, down in the front. Both. Okay.
Your friend Bob Lonergan from the last time around.
Okay.
What are the cash targets, day's targets for 2026? How are you going to get from 356 to where you need to be?
Well, ultimately, we want to get to 365, but we're at 291 right now. And then basically, it's all about getting the residents in that we have. I mean, if you look at, we've got like $7 million right now. And if we can just get those in by Q1, that will add another 54 days immediately to our day schedule payment.
So do you have a couple of milestones you could give us?
We can see, I mean, I'm looking at probably, there's only 2 residents or units that I know that are going to take a little bit of the time, but everything else, so I would say probably, I would say we have half by, January and, get half by, I would say end of March, first part of April.
So you and your team kind of post up and think about it that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're always looking at the days cash on hand.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Kendall, good presentation, thank you. I was curious in the last slide, second last slide, you showed the actuarial valuation that we were running right now is under the 105% minimum that is in the law, and we're at 100.6 or something like that. When we were calculating the fee for the increase in this next year, was there a specific item included in the requirements for those fees that related to getting to that 105%? And if there wasn't, how do you expect to get to the minimum level of 105%?
Well, actually, we've never hit that 105. I mean, if you go back a couple of slides. Oh, yeah. So right now, we were for every dollar that we bring in or expense, we cover that with $1 of revenue. So we've always been like for every dollar expense. Right now, we're bringing in $1 or $1.02. So what it is, we're ultimately trying to get to that. We want to be at the AVP seal, and that's what we got to take. We're crushing it on the unified funded status. We just got to look at our the reserve requirement and the funded status. So we're going to get there. I would say probably, hopefully within the next probably 3 to 5 years that we'll be able to get that, because again, it's going to take some time to get there. And
my question was, without a specific target to get there, without including it in the funding requirements, it won't happen because you're just bouncing around based upon variations in risk from year to year, and you're hoping that amount is going to create the additional...
No, a lot of this is driven by entrance fees. And so when we look at the pricing of our entrance fees is what's driving this. And what we're trying to do is get to where we're bringing in, for every expense dollar that we use, $1.05. So that's our 105. But no, we are targeting the actual entrance fees that will get us up to that 105%. Not fine.
So you do have a specific amount included in the calculation of the fees?
Entrance fees, yes. I guess I'm not following your question.
Maybe we can take that one.
Okay. Doug, yes.
A question on, this would be an employee turnover question, but the Members Association, compared with other CCRCs, funded a very material scholarship program. I would hope that that has an impact on turnover, and can you measure that turnover versus some of our competitors? You know, what is the Members Association producing for Vickers with that scholarship program?
That would be more of an HR question, but what I look at that, yeah, it's a great benefit, but not everybody goes back to school or has that, going to the scholarship, whether they go to college or a class or anything like that. So those people, those employees that don't take advantage of that, I guess that's the whole point. If they don't go back to college or they're not educating themselves to be more, I don't think that impacts the retention on that employee or not.
So I would think, particularly with respect to dining, that it should have a material impact on retention.
Well, and I think mostly of the dining, I agree with you. I think the issue is that, they're going to go back they're going to school. So therefore, we lose them for a good portion of the year when they're into college. So I think, yes, the retention for dining is great, but I don't think we can put that on a turnover percentage.
And Tom, can I jump in here? Doug, first of all, looking overall at our employee retention, we do very well as compared to industry standards and expectations. So retention is very good. Frankly, I don't think you would want us to calculate it with the scholarship program because most of the recipients of the scholarship program are the high school and college students. So once they graduate, they don't come back here. They go on into different careers, and so we don't retain them once they get their degree, but it is a great way for them to stay here while they're in school.
Right. I would hope that also we recruit a higher level of person for, let's say, the dining staff than we might otherwise do without the scholarship program.
Sure, it is an important benefit to that group of employees.
Thank you, Todd. Very good. A lot of detail, but very good. And as you know, we had a discussion. You met with the Finance Committee last Friday, and we went over a lot of this. I just wanted to say that this is the 5th year of the expansion. I think it's fair to say, in my opinion, that the expansion has been a success in many, many respects.
Agreed.
Okay? So I'm just going to focus on one thing, on the monthly service fee increase trends. And you saw the actuarial report is great to show that we're now at 100 or better over the last 3 years, 2 years, whatever. But we were also at, I don't know what maximum capacity is. It can't be, it's not 100%. You're never at 100, I don't think, with the turnover and everything. But we have the benefit of a very high retention, occupancy rate right now. And I would think that it has to reflect in the monthly service fee trend. And so what I was going to say is, in the 5 years prior to the expansion, the average monthly monthly service fee rate increase was 3.75. In the 5 years since, in the expansion, it's 4.2, almost a half a point higher per year, which of course relates to the staffing and getting overage off the ground. But that's still running pretty high, a half a point higher than what it had been prior to the expansion. We're getting maybe 2026 is pretty much close to the end of what you could say is the expansion period.
I agree with that. 2026.
But during that period of time, the revenue has increased 134%. So you're getting not only the increased rate increase, but you're getting a 134% increase in revenue. It's not all coming from the rate increases. I mean, it can be.
Yeah, but also when you look at it
from the overage occupancy.
Yeah, but also when you look at the increases, you got to remember The 6%, that was the market rate adjustments. We had COVID in there. So we've had a lot of things happen right here that we didn't have in the previous years. So, I mean,
Well, there's
we're
always,
looking-
yeah, okay, there's always things like that, I agree.
Yeah.
But I'm just pointing it out as a trend. I don't think the trend can continue, especially now that we're close to the end of the expansion.
No, I agree. The end of the expansion, yes. We will have the full benefit of the revenue to offset the expense.
And Ken, something to point out, with that COVID year, that is where the Oak Ridge expansion was a huge help to everyone here. Our colleagues that same year had monthly servicing fee increases of 12 to 14%, and that's compounded. So we were at 6 because the Oak Ridge expansion helped us keep those costs down at a time of high inflation.
Hello? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Here's my question. In the meeting earlier this week, our chief executive officer mentioned, I think, that the cost of the new garage project will be part of phase 3.
Yes,
Is
that's
that
correct.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question, a little history. I'll preface the question with that for some of the people in the audience. When the prospectus for the first 2021 Series A bond was written, in the notes or in the body of the prospectus, it states that the management company is to be paid a 3% fee on the gross costs of the Oak Ridge project. This is in addition to the regular compensation of 5% of the gross revenues. So as I understand it, that money that comes in to the operating company is paid to the management company. It does not show as an expense item because you capitalize it. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So now that the garage is in phase 3, what is your current estimate for the cost of the garage itself?
Well, we were, as the management fee is paid on the full bond of the development. So therefore, it's already included in with the memory care NAL, and I think it's about 1.5.
So based on the current amended version of your contract between the management company and the operating company with the 3% development consulting fee, will that be paid on all the phase 3 costs, including the cost of the garage?
Yeah, it's already calculated that way, yes. And there's an addendum done for the management, or the development fee.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it? Oh. Okay, one more question. We gotta get through the presentation. Yes.
Now, clearly, when apartments are empty, there's no revenue, and you're bringing on more and more companies to expedite the turnover from non-revenue to revenue. What is the average months of no revenue to date, and what's the goal going forward?
It kind of depends. I would say probably it takes about 60 days to get the renovations done. Hang on. I understand. It's like when we originally were doing it, it was like 60 days. But we're on average now about 120, so double that.
And what is the goal going forward?
We like to get it under 90 days is what our ultimate goal will be.
Yeah, I mean, empty apartments generate no revenue, so.
That is correct. Yes, it's certain everything. Okay.
I feel like I should apologize because I have no numbers or ratios to present, just pretty pictures. I wanted to share with you some of the updates on some of our bigger construction projects, starting with the parking garage. On this first slide, you can see as been discussed in the past, the Marriott allowed us to build the cut-through through their property, which allows these very large trucks to come through their property instead of ours. And it's already being used. I went out there one day and it wasn't there. The next day it was there. So it's been a big help in the construction. Next slide. Oh. And this, you'll see where the barn used to be on the top picture. So they basically leveled the site. They are now in the process, instead of doing the rock columns and stuff like that I'll get to in the end. And this is the back of the side entrance to the Stratford there as well. You kind of have to use your imagination. It's basically pictures of dirt. This is an updated shot of some of the infrastructure we had to move, like the water chiller and the generator. We put a nice fence around it to make it look a little bit nicer. And on the top picture is the construction office. And in the very background, you can see the laundry trailers. And really kudos out to Donna and her team for transitioning that so seamlessly. They've done a fantastic job. On the milestones for the parking garage, get to my sheet. In late November, they're going to be forming and pouring the deep foundation. They'll be forming and pouring concrete head walls for the new 60-inch diameter storm bypass pipe. That'll happen mid-December. The second round of rock column foundations will be completed in late December. They're going to form and pour the shallow foundations at the end of December. A lot of pouring going on. And then the precast concrete starts to go up probably mid-January, and that's about a 6-week run of that. And that's when you're going to see the larger trucks coming that can't make the turn into our property. It'll be exciting times. Moving on to Oak Ridge. So this is the floor plan for memory care. And again, imagination is going to play a part because it's still under construction. And I tried on the floor plan to kind of highlight the area I took a photograph of, and this is the dining room for memory care. And you'll see some of the other spots around it that I'll go through, but it's coming along quite nicely. A lot of the sheetrock's going up. Next slide. This is one of the alcoves that you'll see. I think there's 3 of them. There's one there, here, and here, which would just be a nice sort of stopping point if you want to stop and enjoy an activity or just read or just sit and enjoy the scenery. There'll be 3 of those spots there. This is the nurses' station on the central court, or the central point of the memory care building. There's also another one up front at the main entrance, which is where the medication storage will be. But that's kind of a touchdown point for them, and it gives them access to all the various hallways here. And I tried to get a better bedroom shot, but this is just what a typical bedroom will look like, and you can see the detail in the ceilings that goes throughout every room, and they've also started laying some of the tile in the bathrooms, which really looks nice. Up on the second floor, we are right here now. That's the therapy gym. And just to give you a little bit more of the layout, these are going to be offices for home health and for scheduling. You've got your therapy gym, and then you have the therapy exam rooms along with an office for speech therapy over on this side. The multi-purpose room, which is on the front part of the building, that's where the integrated memory enhancement program will take place, so it'll move into that area. That space is very large and very bright, can be used for a number of things. And then you'll see we've got the wellness nurses area back here with the exam rooms. This is the employee break room. If you see the cupola when you drive by, that's this section here. This is a large area that's going to be great for staff when they need to take a break or come have lunch. There'll be a sort of a central island where lunch will be served from. And there'll be booths along the side, so we're excited about that, to have a very nice, spacious break room for staff. And now we'll move on to assisted living. Sorry, I'm going through this quick. This is a picture, another bedroom, bathroom, compost. You'll see the ceramic tiles going in there as well. And again, the detail on the ceiling. And all throughout, you'll notice the large windows that let in all of this light. And I think it's this bedroom here. This is the multi-purpose room. So we've got that highlighted down there in the corner, which connects to a nice living room. It'll have a TV, bookshelves, a little library back here. And and then you'll move up to the dining room, which overlooks the water. So there's a lot of light. You can see all the windows here. It's really going to be pretty. And that connects to the main kitchen. Somebody asked, I think, at the other presentation about how the food's going to get made there. That's the kitchen for assisted living and memory care. And then they'll have receiving come back here, so you've got your freezers and all your storage. This is showing the front entrance. So when you come to assisted living, you'll walk through the double front doors. You'll have the reception area here. And connected to that, you'll see we've got our chapel, which is right above it. And then right below it, you've got a conference room where we can meet with residents or families, along with a little work area, the nurse's office, and then the assisted living manager's office down here. And I wanted to just include some exterior shots, so that gives you an idea of, take the trash away. That'll be the view for the pond out back, which is a great view. And I included some of the facades so you can see what it's looking like now. And then I wanted to show this to give an idea of where all the parking was going to be on that side. I think it's about 54 spaces we'll have. And there wouldn't be a slideshow without Dale. I asked him to stand in front of the generator to give you some scale about the size of this generator, so there's Dale in his hard hat. But it's coming along very nicely. I know the next milestone we're trying to hit for memory care is to get the power turned on, which will allow us to start running those systems over there, and you'll be able to bring all the millwork in and store that on site for several days to get it acclimated to the temperature there. And then they'll be able to start installing millwork. So it's still on schedule for February of 26. Assisted living, you can tell kind of from the pictures that the memory care is obviously moving faster. That's going to be scheduled for May of 2026. So that's the next big milestone, is the power being turned on. That may be it. Is that it? Okay.
Wait a second, are you going to take questions?
Sure.
Could you please go back to the floor plans and show where Burnham Oak Drive is? Burnham Oak Drive.
Is it on? Right through there.
Okay.
I don't have one that shows the whole property.
Okay, and how about going back to the memory care plan?
So, I mean, that road loops around that way. So you've got assisted living over here and memory care, so the road comes like that.
Thank you.
Sure. Is that it? Oh.
Security question. I know that you've said in the past that people will not come into the Oak Ridge, where the cottages are. They will go in where the trucks are going into the construction project now. Right? What prevents someone who comes in to visit somebody, or I understand you didn't mention there's going to be a doctor's office, there's got to be some sort of commercial function.
Mm-hmm.
What prevents people from just walking over to the cottages?
From the parking?
This was submitted as a question, so it'll be answered
Okay.
when it gets to my point.
Okay. Bruce has the answer for you. I think it was submitted prior.
Submitted, so when we get to that portion, I'll answer that question.
I couldn't hear what you were saying.
Bruce has that as a submitted question. He's already got the answer prepared, so when he comes up, he's going to review that with you.
Oh, I hate to be anticipatory.
It's worth the wait, trust me.
Thank you, Kendall. Good afternoon, everyone. We have been asking the department heads to present their action plans, but in lieu of time, because this is the budget review, I will be presenting them rather quickly. So as you know, after the resident satisfaction scores came out, each of the operating departments created an action plan to address their lowest scoring mechanisms. So I'm going to run through them for each department. So activities, their goal was to expand campus offerings and broaden our opportunities for off-site events. So the wellness department, which is now combined with the activities department, is in the process of planning events and activities for the first quarter of 2026. Functional brain training will be the focus for the first quarter under our new wellness program, Thrive at Vickers Landing. Prior to the end of the year, we do have some upcoming off-site events. These will be at the end of this year, beginning of next. We'll be visiting the Cummer Art Museum, the St. Augustine Knights of Lights, the Amelia Island and Kingsley Plantation, Blue Springs State Park, and the Okefenokee Swamp. And we will continue to try and find off-site offerings that interest the members. Under dining, the goal was to elevate meal quality, menu variety, and overall dining experience. So we've held some recent special events. These have included celebrations such as Veterans Day and Halloween, as well as our memorable anniversary dinner. This brought members and staff together. It was a lot of fun across both campuses. We're pleased to announce the introduction of the Thrive at Vickers Landing menu. We're receiving a lot of great feedback, and that menu will change every 3 months. Possibly not the bases, but the bases will change, not the proteins, because we really can't create new proteins for you all. They would try, but I don't know that we can. Additionally, there have been updates in chef leadership. Chef de Cuisine Ron is now overseeing the culinary operations at Oak Ridge, and Chef de Cuisine Jay is taking the lead at Sawgrass. Ongoing training sessions continue to be provided for our serving staff to ensure high standards of service and professionalism are upheld. The dining committee has also been actively involved. They recently reviewed our new menu cycles, both at Sawgrass and Oak Ridge, and as a committee, they provided recommendations of items they would like to see included, but also items they did not feel would resonate with members, and so those were removed. That's a practice that we will commit to with each menu cycle. In addition, we now have access to new poolside dining options at both campuses, expanding the setting in which you can enjoy your meals. There will be an upcoming article in the Vickers Voice, as well as a posting in Cubigo to keep everyone informed on how to utilize the new poolside dining services. Under healthcare, one of the goals was to improve dining support and maintain exceptional cleanliness standards. We're working through a new software system for dining, which will enhance the dining experience for our members in the Windsor and in the Stratford. The housekeeping training has been conducted alongside the housekeeping department, and the current satisfaction surveys indicate an elevated level of satisfaction. I'm going to speak a little bit more about that under the housekeeping department. So the housekeeping department implemented consistent staff training and the creation of ongoing audits. You all recently received a housekeeping satisfaction survey, and the results were quite impressive. In independent living, both communities were very satisfied at 85% or 90%. The health center, again, the majority of our members in the health center were satisfied with the cleanliness of their units and their spaces. And again, the Stratford also very satisfied at 94%. So housekeeping is really doing an excellent job in meeting the goals that they have set forth. Under plant operations, their goal was to sustain facility infrastructure and advance landscape initiatives. So plant operations has streamlined their daily building routines with technicians and introduced clear contractor guidelines for maintenance. Landscaping improvements are still being planned for 2026, but we have already increased sidewalks with Brightview and will begin committee walkthroughs once or twice each month alongside the regularly scheduled meeting. Plant operations will continue revising seasonal landscaping plans and broaden member feedback. For building maintenance, they aim to improve communication on progress using a clearer scope of work, which should reduce repeat work orders and boost member satisfaction in 2026. And the last department, security and transportation, nighttime security and improved access to control measures was the goal. Security staff will also begin conducting frequent evening rounds to assess and ensure that lighting levels remain appropriate throughout the property. Our goal is to foster a safer environment for all members, guests, and staff members. We will begin promoting the scheduling of Vickers Landing transportation via the Cubigo platform in 2026. We will provide training, not just to staff members, but also to Vickers Landing members on the use of how transportation services will work through Cubigo. In addition, you will still have the option of contacting the department directly to arrange for transportation. So we will be resurveying all of the members in March using select 2025 member selection survey measures, meaning the questions from the original survey, we have identified those that align with the goals created by each department. And this will give us an opportunity to assess departmental action plan effectiveness. And we'll know if we hit the mark or if we need to go back and redo the action plans and create different goals and approaches. So Thrive at Vickers Landing. Active Aging Week 2025 was a tremendous success. It tells us two things. The members at Vickers Landing are very interested in this new initiative, and we could not be more thrilled. We celebrated 7 days of inspiring wellness-focused events. This engaged over 450 participants throughout the week. It strengthened the community's strength and spirit and the commitment to wellness. Next year, we're going to change the week, one, to avoid the boutique sale. We understood that was a big issue. And also to hopefully avoid inclement weather, which was one of the factors that really impacted the 2025 week. So the next steps, the wellness department is creating a comprehensive 2026 plan that will embrace all dimensions of wellness and offer meaningful engagement for each member. So more to come. We'll have Lex Gonzalez provide an update at the next quarterly. And then last but not least, the Director of Security and Transportation. After 36 years, Scott Hutzinger left Vickers Landing. He leaves behind a remarkable legacy that reflects the very heart of our community, a commitment to integrity, compassion, and community. So we are in the recruitment process to find a new director for this department, but in the interim, Toy Ellis, who is the Assistant Director, will serve as interim. Many of you know her well. She has a deep understanding of the community and her department's needs and will run it effectively until we find the next director. So that is the end of the operating department's update, and I will now hand it over to Bruce. Thank you.
And we do wish Scott well, and in case you were wondering why there hasn't been more about that, it was specifically at his request. He didn't want any party recognition. You knew he was kind of a quiet, humble guy, and so we wanted to respect his wishes there. So who knows what happens 10 days from now? It's an important day for me. It's the end of hurricane season. So, we are almost there, and this has been a wonderful year for us, and I hope for many more just like this. So we are at the end, and I think with the cooler weather and cooler water, we're not going to see anything in the next 10 days. So knock on wood. Exciting time there. So I had several questions submitted ahead of time, not as many as last time, so we won't be here as long. But as I've always promised, I will read what was written to me and provide an answer, and then we'll offer an opportunity for questions from the floor. So the first question I received is, what is the progress on the walking and biking rear access gate and path at Oak Bridge? So I assume this is referring to the pedestrian access to Sawgrass Village. The first proposal through Public's real estate division was apparently shelved for a future review, we found out. This despite letters of support from Chair of County Commissioners Krista Joseph, President of the Sawgrass Village Executive Association Lynette White, and Chris Lazaro, owner of Mountain Star. All of them stressed the safety issues the current shopping center presents in lacking sidewalks and crosswalks. But what we believe happened is that Publix misunderstood the proposal and thought that they were being asked to fund and execute the plan themselves. So Dale and our attorney Terry Moore have reached back out to Publix through their chief counsel, making it clear that this is a project that we will manage, and we just want to make sure that we have some safety enhancements there. So it is still a project that we focus on, but no progress with Publix as of yet. The second question had a couple of sub-questions, and so I start with security is able to view numerous areas of the Sawgrass campus on a screen in the security office. There is not a camera view of the pool area. I believe with the upcoming dining options beginning, a camera may be advisable, especially since alcohol will be available. So I do appreciate that suggestion. We do have cameras positioned throughout the campus at our entries and exits, and at the exits of all common area and healthcare buildings, so that we can make sure that we're monitoring the safety of the campus. After discussing this question with the team, we do believe that since it's not a point of entry, the pool is not a point of entry, and we want to preserve the comfort and dignity of residents enjoying the pool in their swimsuits, we think it's best not to have a camera there. Trying to balance all things there. It is a legitimate question, concern. We want to make sure that no one has a health issue or something out there, but we'll continue to rely on walking by and each of us looking out for each other for the time being. The second part of their question was the Sawgrass switchboard is confusing. No matter who is calling, the screen says Vickers Security. Plus, when being transferred to a different office, I'm often routed through security. Sawgrass needs a new system. So again, thank you for that. It did prompt us to dig into looking at what's available with our system. Since the main switchboard is the security desk at the health center, any call coming in and going through that switchboard will say Vickers Landing Security. Your number at home is outside of our network, so it will show the switchboard label. When being transferred, if the person you called knows the extension of the person to whom you want to be transferred, they can do that directly, but if they don't have the extension handy, something like that, then they would often switch you through the security desk. When we next upgrade the phone system, we will look at a better way to identify callers by office. But in the meantime, we are changing that label, so instead of just security, it will just say Vickers Landing, so you'll know it would be somewhere within our community. And then the last part of that submitted set of questions is there are a few dark areas on the perimeter of the Sawgrass campus on York Road and Canterbury Lane. Additional lighting is needed. And I appreciate you letting us know that. I immediately talked to Enver, who immediately got into action. And he came back to the campus one night this week and did an assessment and found that there are some dim and burned out bulbs in some of the bollards, and he is getting those replaced. He also identified some tree trimming that will help light from the street lights spread wider. So he will be addressing all those issues, and once all that is addressed, he'll come back and do another assessment and see if additional lighting is needed. So I always appreciate extra eyes on the campus. If you do notice something like that, an area that feels dark or unsafe, please let us know so that we can address it. Next question reads, master plan, project timeline, cost, source of funds. So many of you, I thank many of you for coming to the presentation on Tuesday where I presented the master plan. That presentation was recorded and is available to you on our YouTube channel if you missed it, and so I encourage you to take advantage of that. So the plan is done and will help guide us over the next decade or so. The parking structure will prepare us for that by clearing space for parking and operations. Since it is essentially a blueprint and not a final plan, we don't have it cost out at this point. The funds will come from a new bond issue that will be paid in part by new entrance fees from new independent living that would be built. But our first priority is to finish the final phase at Oak Bridge and the Parking and Operations Center. The next question reads, it is rumored the hydroponic garden is costing $500,000. What is it costing and where is the money coming from? How did it get to be the highest priority? Was there member input about choices? If so, please describe. Why did you start it cutting down trees and eliminating and finally sort of restoring parking spaces just when there was plenty of construction chaos from the garage project? Couldn't it have waited until the garage was finished? The space could have been used for much needed temporary parking spaces. So there were a lot of points in there. I think I addressed them all in my answer here. So the project cost is actually $175,000, not $500,000. And that $175,000 includes the structure, the site preparation, and full setup. That cost reflects a significant reduction, a significant discount that's generously provided by One World Fresh, the organization with whom we're working, and a recognized leader in this field. We were selected as their first retirement community partner, and so that is why we are able to get it at such a discount. And we were introduced to that company and this opportunity by our founder and your fellow resident, Father Jim Cooper. And there have since been several members who have visited the greenhouse downtown at One World Fresh. We've received a lot of positive feedback and comments, and so we look forward to that happening. Now, Alden White, the contractor for Phase 3 at Oak Bridge, has generously donated a significant portion of the project, and so they'll have their name attached to it, but that offsets any cost. The greenhouse will provide us with fresh organic produce, and through savings, and we have the potential to sell back excess produce to One World Fresh, and that helps offset our cost, and so those offsets have this, the total cost paid for in the first year. In addition, it does create a new opportunity for residents to be involved in an activity of interest, as they can help with planting and harvesting the produce and keeping the greenhouse going. So we're looking forward to having that as an amenity here on the Sawgrass campus. So the next set of questions, there were several parts to it, but they related to each of the campuses. So first was at the Sawgrass campus, possible locations for additional Canterbury homes. So unfortunately, due to space restrictions on this campus, we aren't able to build more Canterbury homes. But in the master plan, if you were there, you saw we do anticipate adding additional independent living buildings that could have similar floor plans, but they would be 3-story like most of the other buildings out here, not the single-story triplex. At the Oak Bridge campus, timing for pedestrian gate walkway to Sawgrass Village. So I shared the answer there, waiting on Publix. Next, at the Oak Bridge campus, plan for area now used for construction staging across from cottages 41 through 46. So at this time, there's no plan other than to renew the landscaping there and make it look nice once that stops being used for construction laydown. The next part was at the Oak Ridge campus, plan for security at entrance to new memory care assisted living buildings. So since those buildings are part of our community, the entrances will be from inside the gates. There will be fencing between them that connects to our existing fencing around the campus. The parking lot on the A1A side will be available for some staff and for parking for the leased space on the second floor of the memory care. So the entry from that parking will be to a vestibule with an elevator and stair access to the public areas, the leased space on the second floor. And there's a secure door separating that leased space from Vickers Landing space. So anyone who is not a member of Vickers Landing, doesn't have a fob, if they park in that parking lot, the only distance they would be able to go is into that vestibule and up to one of the 2 leased offices that we anticipate being medical offices. So they can't get past that in the building, and they can't get through any of the buildings into the community. And then finally, for this set of questions, at Oak Bridge, will there be fenced landscape with shrubs and trees between new memory care assisted living buildings and Burnham Oak Drive? Those areas will be re-landscaped, and there will be a secure fenced garden space for the memory care. But the main entrances to both those buildings have always been designed to be inside the gates. So that's how those areas will be accessed, but they certainly will be landscaped and look very attractive. Next question is, we have been led to believe that the campus for the memory care and assisted living would be separate from the independent living units at Oak Bridge. There was to be a fence around the space, and the only entrance would be through the gate near the security, and that the Oak Ridge campus was to be secured. However, now it appears that there is to be a circular driveway to the assisted living building coming off Burnham Oak Drive. It also looks as if there are 2 parking spaces off the road, when we were told all parking was to be inside the new area. This does not look like what we have been told in terms of security for Oak Bridge. What are we to expect to see in terms of our living spaces being secure. So the way you are seeing it is the way it has always been designed and the way it's been on every site plan that we have shown you. Those buildings were always intended to be a part of the Oak Bridge community because they are for primarily the Oak Bridge members and the Vickers Landing members, both campuses. So there was always the intention for them to face inward. As I mentioned, there will be fencing separating the campus from the A1A parking so that the only entries onto the campus by car are the main security gate of A1A, the Castor Gate, or the resident entrance through Perkle Pass. So those are the only access points onto the campus. Next is what was the final total expense, including design, consulting, landscaping, pathway modification, and all related expenses for the croquet court at Oak Bridge. The total cost is $525,000, and $50,000 was to be provided back by the member fund. And the other part of this person's question is, what has been included in the 2026 budget to correct the deficiencies that have become apparent at the Oak Bridge Clubhouse? Specifically, providing an adequate meeting space for housing unit groups of 40 people or so, having kitchen facilities that allow the staff the ability to prepare and serve food in a timely manner, creating a modest library or book exchange area, fixing the sitting area so that it doesn't uncomfortably heat or cool every time an exterior door opens, and any other exercise, fitness, or general member activity that has become known. Will member input be requested to help identify and fix the clubhouse issues? So the dining room was designed to be the large gathering space for larger groups outside of the dinner hour. We don't have plans to add on to that building to create a large gathering room. If you do have a large group, there's certainly spaces over there. There's space here in this auditorium that can be reserved. And so we do have spaces between the two campuses for larger groups. The size of the kitchen is not the issue. There are very Michelin star, 5-star restaurants in New York City that have kitchens half the size of what we have at Oak Bridge. The problem that we've been having is management of that kitchen. And you've seen turnover in the chef over there, and that's been unfortunate. We are very pleased that Chef Ron has come over to oversee kitchen operations and to look forward to improving the service you've been experiencing over there. Chef Ron did work here in the Sawgrass Kitchen for some time. He's a very positive person. He likes to mentor young chefs, and so we think that he could be the right person to get things in line over the Oak Bridge Kitchen. As to the library, we are working on a space for the library. More to come as we finalize that. In speaking with the team, we are unsure to what seating area you're referring about that gets uncomfortably hot or cold. This submission was unsigned, so if you are here, please come see one of the leadership team to help us understand the area you were speaking to so we can look into it. The croquet court was a request by many members from the beginning, before we even started moving dirt at Oak Bridge. And we're pleased to have that amazing court built for the long term. We are happy to consider other exercise and amenity areas. Just certainly come and tell us. But as to input, the best course of action is to share that with your elected committee heads, because those committee heads have regular meetings with our management team, and that helps us understand what needs to be prioritized through member requests. So those were the pre-submitted questions. I'm happy to take questions from the floor, and as always, if you wait until you have the microphone so everyone can hear. Charlie.
I've asked you for a moment to look into your crystal ball. When this project is completed, next year, couple of years, what do you see as would be the next major thing that needs to happen here that would keep us on top or competitive with other organizations?
Well, I don't have my Johnny Carson turban to know what's to come, but really the master plan is, the reason we did the master plan is just for that, to make sure that we are staying current and competitive and ready for the next generation of people coming in. So, we'll finish the projects we're working on now, and we will shift toward working on the master plan projects.
Okay, specifically, I was interested in any of the other organizations like ours. Do they have anything going on that we should be looking at?
You know, I get little bits of ideas here and there. You know, I've spoken about this before, but we are part of a consortium of single site and small system not-for-profit retirement communities across the country that allow us to act like a large multi-site organization while maintaining our independence. And so we visit each other, and you know, I get to see what is going on in other communities. And so I do pick up on ideas as things are changing. We share ideas frequently. And so there's nothing that I've seen that is hugely groundbreaking. It's little things. It's how you change something in the spa area or a wellness program, those sorts of things.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mrs. Goldsmith.
Speaking of croquet courts,
Yes, ma'am.
I understand that we're planning to have some improvements to our croquet court here at Sawgrass in 2026, and I was interested in knowing what part of 2026 that would happen.
Where's Todd? Oh, is it Ember?
As soon as I give me money, I can do it. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna get on it as soon as possible. I gotta just check with Janice about, you know, what is going on, if there's any tournaments going on and stuff like that, but as soon as we got a budget, I'm gonna get on it ASAP. Maybe January.
Mr. Munson?
Bruce, I was at the master plan meeting, but my memory's failing me. Would you review again the number and the layout for the new independent living units?
Certainly. So what is anticipated is that there will be ultimately different phases. There will be 2 independent living buildings of 12 homes each. Similar in style to what we have, so there will be courtyards, courtyard atria in them. The locations, the first one would be behind the auditorium here, going out to the 1400 hall of the health center, what is where that hall is now. And the other would be where, just off the kitchen, where therapy and wellness are now, straight back. So they would be parallel and create kind of a parallel view straight down the campus, over the lake, through a nice green area with a new croquet court at that point, and then out to the back pond.
So that's like 24 in total?
24 in total, yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's what we anticipated. That's how it was drawn down.
For those of us who live on Burnham Oak Drive,
Yes, ma'am.
what is the county regulation for the beginning of construction, backing, beeping, lifting, noise? It is starting at 6 a.m. in the morning.
So the question is, she lives on Burnham Oak Drive, and she is asking about regulations related to all the noises related to construction, beeping and that sort of thing. It should not be happening at 6 a.m.
It is.
I'll double check, I
Yeah.
promise.
I walk in the morning and
Yeah, I believe you. I'm saying, yeah, Dale has his fingers up. They're not supposed to start before 7. So Kendall, if you will get with Alden White, make sure they're on their subcontractors, because they need to be sticking to those requirements.
it's on our property, but it's also over the fence on that one office building that's being remodeled.
With that, we can't control.
That's the county though, that is in St. Johns County, and I think there's, having lived here for 25 years, there is a regulation on when construction noise can begin, and it's not 6.
I don't know what that is, and we can't control the Chase Bank property. Yeah, we can't control ours. Yeah. Okay.
Same as us.
The regulation is the same as us, so 7 o'clock? Okay.
We just raised that issue in that last couple of seasons about
So Kendall is saying we just raised that issue with the contractors in yesterday's weekly meeting. I wonder if I may have a contact for Chase. Remind me to look that up, and I can get with Chase and ask them to look into that. Actually, yeah, we know the contractor over there. The contractor, one of the contractors over there used to be with a different company doing work here, so remind me to go with that, and we'll get that addressed. Thank you for raising that. Other questions? Very good, not seeing any. Thank you very much. I wish you all a wonderful Thanksgiving, and have a